When it was proposed 2 years ago that 2006 be the year of action on asbestos, nobody would have guessed what a prescient move that would be. Last year, the positions of the International Labour Organization and the World Health Organization shifted, with the result that the organizations now tasked with protecting public and occupational health support the campaign to ban asbestos. This was huge. The importance of this can be seen by the countermeasures taken by the asbestos stakeholders. The trade unions from 8 Soviet republics in the asbestos cement industries in these republics formed the Chrysotile International Alliance of Trade Unions to protect the industry against scientifically unfounded attacks. They're having a conference next month, and they're going to be finalizing their strategy to counter the campaigns by most global unions that support the Ban Asbestos campaign. Industry stakeholders from Canada, because they're such generous people, and industry stakeholders from Mexico, also because they're generous, contributed money to people in Peru so they could form a chrysotile association in Peru to counter the calls by the Ban Asbestos campaigners in Peru for a national ban. I should mention there are active associations in many other asbestos countries, including Mexico, Brazil, India, and Indonesia. The associations in the United Kingdom and Greece, Japan and Portugal are now more or less defunct, but I do believe there is an association in the United States called the Asbestos Information Association of North America, and every now and again we still hear some noise from them. What else did the asbestos lobby do? Well, on January the 12th, 2007, a letter was sent to the WHO by Jack Dunnigan, who used to be, by coincidence, the Director for Health and Safe Environment at the Asbestos Institute. And he complained that we were demonizing white asbestos and that it was unfair and ill-advised and based on faulty science. And he said that scientific studies show that at low exposure, pure chrysotile does not present a significant risk. Another letter sent to the WHO and signed by individuals including so-called experts such as Dr. David Bernstein stated, inhalation toxicology studies on commercial chrysotile asbestos show it is not toxic. Okay, another letter to the ILO, this time from the Chrysotile Institute, which used to be the Asbestos Institute, demanded a retraction of the ILO's resolution on asbestos and said that nowadays chrysotile is used responsibly and regulated by strict safety standards. Well, let's just think about this. The Chrysotile Institute is demanding that the ILO retracts its resolution. Well, we're being taped, so I can't use the language I'd like to use. But who are they to demand anything of the ILO? So I spoke to a friend of mine, and I said, I'm so outraged by this. Can you help me to visualize my anger? And this is what he did. And I think it says all that I need to say about that. Right. I want to remind you of that sentence. Nowadays, chrysotile is used responsibly. Okay? Last year in July, we had a conference in Thailand, and we were shown some slides. And these are new slides. These are not slides I showed last year. I made a point of getting the new slides from Thailand to show you about the responsible use of chrysotile these days. This is an asbestos cement factory in Vietnam. This series of photographs was taken by our colleague Sanjeev Pandita, who's based in Hong Kong, and he went to Vietnam, I think it was 2005 to 2004. And so here is the factory, and here is the responsible use of chrysotile asbestos. You can see, I think it's even worse than the tunnels. Here's another picture at the same factory. You see the guy's toes poking out there. I guess it gets hot in Vietnam, so they got a fan that, circulates the air so that everybody has a bit of a breeze. I don't need to tell you what that does to the fibers. Okay, let's go to India. This is the responsible use of chrysotile in India. And this is two gentlemen responsibly using chrysotile in India as well. What I want to do now is just pick up some highlights of what happened this year. Are we winning or are we losing? And you can read these, and we all speak English. Well, you kind of speak English, but we're not going to belabor that. What I think is interesting with these slides is, look, Europe, fine, we've been doing stuff on asbestos, but you've got Poland, which is a new member of the European Union, and they had this incredible workshop, which I went to in Krakow, and they concluded, surprise, surprise, that asbestos cement corrodes. Who knew? And that during the corrosion process, asbestos fibers are liberated. Gee, isn't that funny? Because the asbestos lobby says that asbestos is enclosed in a matrix in asbestos cement, and it's perfectly safe. But Professor Jerry Dychek, he doesn't agree with them. You had a meeting in Tanzania, another in Malta, where the Maltese government said that a Dutch ship that was contaminated with asbestos wasn't allowed to enter their country. Okay, in October, we had some interesting developments, including a 2-day meeting by trade construction unions in India. In November, again, we had a very important event, which was the opening in Australia of the National Research Centre for Asbestos-Related Diseases. This is a massively important initiative, and the Australian government deserves to be congratulated for their strategic and coordinated approach to asbestos-related disease, which is killing people on a scale unprecedented in Australia. My friends at the Asbestos Diseases Society in Perth told me that 3 weeks ago they had 11 mesotheliomas walk through their doors in 1 week. That's a lot of people. Okay, we have this discussion in Kenya on the scrapping of toxic ships. Chile, look at December, all these different events, things happening. The government of Uganda was under pressure from lawmakers to eliminate asbestos in the schools. Now that's Uganda. Look what they're doing, and look what you guys are doing in the United States. I mean, it comes to something when the government of Uganda is being more proactive than the American government. Bangladesh, there are amazing people working on this issue in Bangladesh, and I am just full of admiration for what they're achieving. They had a 2-day conference banning asbestos in South Asia. And that was held by these NGOs, and there were demonstrators who formed human chains to demand basic rights for workers in shipbreaking yards. Maybe that's what they should be doing in Washington, D.C. I've got some photographs. These are our colleagues in Bangladesh. This was the meeting that they all participated in, the 2 days. This is the human chain. Clean shipbreaking, stop the killing. I think that pretty much says what we want to say. Candlelight vigil at the shipyards. It catches your imagination, and people are participating. It's wonderful, Bangladesh. In Brazil, because they do things differently in Brazil, we have these very inventive colleagues led by Fernanda Gianassi, and they decided they were going to take the fight out to the consumers. And they are having a special project in the parks, one Sunday a month in the summer, because now it's summer there. They go out to these parks, a different park each month, and they have an outreach program, and they give the kids balloons, and they have T-shirts, and they have a character, and this is the witch. Her name is Miss Chrysotile. But yeah, typical Brazil, even the witch is gorgeous. I mean, it's not fair. But anyway, so these projects it's been enormously successful, and they're saying to consumers, you don't need to buy this stuff. And they're having a lot of positive press, and because the more press they have that's positive, the more flack they're getting from the industry. In January, the Andean community, which represents 5 countries in Latin America, published this document, banning asbestos in the Andean subregion, and it quantified the various usages and the amounts being consumed in these countries. Again, Bangladesh, they're leading the way. India, and I'm very proud of this. This was Oh, I forgot to mention that our colleague Dr. Joshi in December had a meeting in India. Dr. Frank was there, and Barry Castleman was there, and it was a very well-attended meeting. But in January, this was a very small meeting, much smaller, much low-key, and it was the first meeting of a grassroots organization, bringing together trade unions, academics, some students, to really start working from the grassroots up. And this lady in this picture, who is Madhu, she is a real powerhouse, and I hope that, you know, with a bit of support from her colleagues abroad, you know, that this will be the beginning of something really, really important. So this is just February, Australia, Korea. Korea announced, not the United States, Korea announced a national asbestos ban within 2 years. And I should also mention that in the UK on February the 27th, we had Action Mesothelioma Day, and there were events all over the country. And this was the event that took place up in Newcastle. This is the Millennium Bridge in Newcastle. You can see how cold and wet a day it was, but people turned out, and we got a lot of press, and it was really an important day, and they did a great job. In March, again, more events. In Japan, public demonstrations and lobbying by asbestos victims. This was a few days ago, to pressure the government into sort of doing more for the victims. And I could talk about Japan endlessly, but it's late and I'm not gonna. But there's a lot of stuff going on in Japan, not in the United States, but in Japan. Right, before you might have been a bit surprised when I referred to Pat Martin's skills as a puppeteer. This was a press conference that Pat and his colleague Catherine Bell had in Ottawa, and you know, I'm going to take any support if it's, you know, in the form of puppets. Hey, you know, we don't discriminate, Linda. We're a very inclusive bunch, right? And Pat used his imagination, and he got a lot of press. You know, I think some of them took, you know, made a few jokes about Pat and his voice when it came to the puppet, but he got their attention. And I think, is that Timmy Toxin? No, Toxic Timmy, Mesothelioma. Okay, whatever works, right? And I told you about the demonstrations in Japan a couple of days ago, and these were the flyers that were given out by our colleagues. There was one demonstration on the 25th, and I think a seminar on the 26th. And again, they're doing great work. And I've got nothing but respect for them. In April, there's going to be a seminar in Finland, again, Bangladesh. And on April the 28th, which is International Workers' Memorial Day, there are going to be demonstrations and calls for bans on asbestos all over the world. And that's it's a day that a lot of people are putting a lot of work into, and I'm sure it's going to be a terrific day. So my concluding thoughts. The momentum achieved in 2006 has carried on through and into 2007. It's not just the quantity of events that are taking place, although those are very rewarding. And I forgot to pay tribute to the ADAO's conference in Philadelphia. So it's not just the quantity, it's the fact that these events are occurring in developing countries such as Brazil, Bangladesh, India, and Korea. Now that's incredibly significant. And the activity of so many diverse groups and individuals now working together on conferences and on publications, on campaign material, this is also new. At one time, trade unions wouldn't talk to me, you know, oh, you're that crazy woman in England, you know, they didn't want to know. But now we've developed really good links, and we are working together, and we find that we can supplement each other's work, and we are stronger. Together, we are stronger than we are apart. We don't have the money that they do, but we have a lot more than they do. We have the commitment, we have innovation, we have imagination, and I think that counts for more. This more than compensates for our lack of financial resources. 2006 was a watershed in the grassroots campaign to protect humanity from the asbestos scourge. There were some disappointments, sure, but we had many more victories. We have never been better positioned, better informed, or better placed to achieve our goal of an asbestos-free future. The struggle continues. Thank you very much.